Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is time for the picks for week 3 of the college football season. Last week, I was 19-3 in 22 picks. I was 1-1 in my top 25 matchups for the week. I was 1-0 in my top 10 picks. I got Iowa beating Iowa State correct, and that makes me 2-0 overall in my top 10 picks. I am 5-2 overall in my top 25 picks, and I am 36-6 overall. This week, there's a couple of big matchups, but not too many. But there are a few interesting matchups between ranked versus unranked opponents. Some of them make me a little bit nervous, so let's dive right in. One that doesn't make me super nervous is number 1 Alabama going on the road to the Swamp to play number 11th ranked Florida. I haven't seen Florida play a lot this season. I don't really know too much about them. I have heard recently, though, that there are some questions about why Coach Dan Mullen's quarterbacks, Dan Mullen is known as a quarterback whisperer of sorts, though there's some questions about why his quarterbacks aren't performing this season the way they probably should or the way everyone expected them to before the season started. Alabama's quarterback, Bryce Young, is a new quarterback. He's young. There's going to be games where he's going to make some mistakes, and it's going to be up to probably that Alabama defense to bail them out. I don't know if this is the game where he makes some of those mistakes. I'm going to guess not, though, and I think Alabama is a good enough team because I have seen them to know that they are quite good, to make an understatement. So I'm going to go with Alabama on the road in the Swamp against another highly ranked opponent. Number 2, Georgia in that sick defense at home versus South Carolina. I'm going to go with Georgia. Oklahoma coming off a 76-0 drubbing of Western Carolina. Good God. They are renewing an old Big 12 rivalry when they host Nebraska. I think Oklahoma may be kind of shaking off the funk from that Tulane game. Nebraska's 2-1, but I just don't think they've got the talent to hang with Oklahoma, so go with the Sooners on that one. The number 4 ranked Oregon Ducks coming off a huge win on the road against the Ohio State Buckeyes are going back home against Stony Brook. I don't really know anything about Stony Brook. I didn't even know that they played football there. So I don't think this is a letdown game. Go with the Ducks. The new number 5 team in the nation, the Iowa Hawkeyes, jumping up a number of spots after their big win on the road against in-state rival Iowa State. They are home against Kent State. Despite the fact that Iowa has some problems offensively, their defense is real good. They turned the ball over 4 times against Iowa State. So look for Iowa to win at home. Number 6, the Clemson Tigers. They are home against Georgia Tech. Look for Clemson to win this game. Number 7, Texas A&M dropping a couple of spots after that near loss on the road against Colorado. Their starting quarterback, Haynes King, went out with an injury early in that game. Their backup quarterback now has had a full week to prepare, a full week of reps with the first team offense. They are home against the University of New Mexico, which is a lesser opponent than Colorado. Look for Texas A&M to win this game. Number 8, Cincinnati going on the road to take on Indiana. I was conflicted about this game because Cincinnati is a very good team, but they're a Power 5 school that oftentimes doesn't have the size or the speed or some of the playmakers that a Power 5 team like Indiana might have. Indiana, though, seems like they're not quite as good as we had thought. They beat the crap out of Idaho last week, but they lost a game the previous week to Iowa, whose defense shut them down. When you look at the stats, Cincinnati is passing the ball for 278 yards a game. They're rushing for just under 200 a game, so they've got a pretty balanced offense. Quarterback Desmond Ridder is completing 72% of his passes. He's got 6 touchdowns on the year with 1 interception. Their defense has got 3 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. Their defense is only letting their quarterbacks complete 46% of their passes. They're only letting up 129 yards a game passing, 132 rushing. So their defense is pretty good. And as I just mentioned, Indiana had some problems with Iowa's good defense in week 1. Indiana, meanwhile, they are only rushing for 128 yards a game. They're only passing for 158 yards a game. Michael Penix Jr., is only completing 53% of his passes. He's got 2 touchdowns and 3 picks, all of which were against Iowa. They're only completing, are the Hoosiers, 27% of their third down conversions, and they're letting their opponents complete 39%, or excuse me, it's the reverse. They're completing 39% of the third downs, and they're holding their opponents to 37% on third down. Meanwhile, Cincinnati's completing 44% of their third down conversions. Cincinnati's got a bye week next week, and then the week after, they are playing Notre Dame on the road. But because there's a bye week in between, I don't think that Cincinnati is going to be overlooking Indiana going into this game. I think Cincinnati has shown that they are just a better team when you look at their stats. Yeah, Indiana had a big win against Idaho, but again, it's Idaho. When they played a team like Iowa that had a good defense, they shut them down. They were shut down. Cincinnati's got a good defense. I'm going to go with the Bearcats on this one on the road. Number 9, Ohio State, coming off the loss against Oregon. They are home versus Tulsa. Sorry, Tulsa, but it's going to be an angry Ohio State team, and I don't think this one's going to be close at all. Number 10, Penn State at home versus number 22, Auburn. Auburn, I'm not sure if I trust them because they haven't really played any great opponents this season. They're racking up 236 passing yards a game, 340 rushing yards. Quarterback Bo Nix is completing 74% of his passes with 5 touchdowns and no picks. Their defense, get this, is allowing 34 rushing yards per game on average. But again, they've played crap opponents in the first 2 weeks. They've got 8 sacks and an interception, but I mean, even if you're playing crap opponents, 34 yards a game rushing is pretty impressive. They're holding their opponents to just 24% third down completion percentage, and they're converting their own third downs at a 59% clip. Penn State, they've got 250 yards a game passing, 145 a game rushing. Quarterback Sean Clifford is completing 63% of his passes for only 2 touchdowns but no picks. Their defense has got 3 sacks, 4 interceptions on the season. They're allowing 206 yards a game and 122 yards rushing a game. And they played better opponents. They played a tough Wisconsin team on the road, and they managed to hold off and win that game. It's a home game. I think it is a night game. It might be a big whiteout game. My gut's telling me that Penn State is going to be better this year than I thought they were going to be when the year started. Auburn, I don't trust some of those statistics because I think they're misleading because of the low quality of competition. So I'm going to go with number 10 Penn State at home against number 22 Auburn. Number 11 Florida, I've already said, is going to lose to number 1 Alabama. Number 12, Notre Dame. They are home against Purdue. They have escaped in their first 2 weeks on the road against Florida State and then home last week against Toledo. I don't think they escape this one. I think they win solidly. I think they finally get their act together a bit because they know that down the road they've got some big games. For example, next week they're playing Wisconsin on the road. And then the week after that, they're playing Cincinnati at home. So they've got 2 big games. If they want to stay in contention for a possible college football playoff berth, they have to win this game against Purdue. I think they will go with the Fighting Irish. Number 13, UCLA. They are home against Fresno State. Fresno State can be tough, and they beat UCLA a couple of years ago, but I think this is a different UCLA team. They've got a strong running game. Dorian Thompson-Robinson seems like he's starting to gear up a little bit, starting to play a little bit better. So I'm going to go with the Bruins from UCLA in this one. Number 14, Iowa State, after dropping that game at home to Iowa and looking really bad in the process. They are traveling across the country to play at UNLV. Well, Iowa's kind of in the middle of the country, so it's not really traveling across the country, but they're on the road at UNLV. UNLV is an inferior opponent. I don't think they'll stand up to Iowa State, despite the fact that it's on the road. I think Iowa State is mad. I think they feel like maybe their college football playoff hopes have been dashed. I certainly think that. I think they play angry. I think they win this game. Go with the Cyclones. Number 15, Virginia Tech on the road at West Virginia. Va Tech, I don't think, is a super impressive team. They're 2-0 on the season. They only pass for 164 yards a game, and they rush for 176 yards a game. So balanced, certainly, but not overly impressive. Their quarterback, Braxton Burmeister, is completing 61% of his passes. He's got 2 TDs and a pick on the season. He rushes the ball for 5.5 yards a gain. So that's an added dimension that West Virginia is going to have to account for. Their defense is allowing 246 pass yards a game and 106 rush yards a game, although they do have 8 sacks and 4 interceptions. 5 of those sacks came in their first game against North Carolina against a veteran offensive line that had returned all their starters from the previous year. West Virginia, meanwhile, they're completing 311 passing yards a game. So it's going to be a relatively weak pass defense against a strong pass offense. But West Virginia's only rushing the ball for 123 yards a game, so it's a pass-first offense for the Mountaineers. Their quarterback, Jared Deggy, is completing 61% of his passes. He's got 4 TDs and 2 picks on the year. Their defense is allowing 196 yards a game passing, 100 yards a game rushing, and they have 4 sacks. Again, both teams seem like they're not super impressive. They're playing well, but not overly so. They're not dominating opponents. Virginia Tech, won the game against North Carolina, but they were dominated in the stats by North Carolina. I kind of went back and forth on this game, but I'm going to lean into Virginia Tech a bit. I think they'll do enough to win the game. I think it'll be close, but I think they get out of Morgantown with a win. Number 16, Coastal Carolina on the road at Buffalo, so they're traveling north. It's late September, though, so it's not going to be cold, and the snows of Lake Erie aren't going to be affecting this game, so I don't think that has going to play a factor in this at all. A lot of people were talking about how this was going to be a tough game for Coastal going into it. Buffalo got beat pretty soundly by Nebraska last week, and when you look at the stats on this one, I just think that Coastal Carolina looks like they are the better team. They're throwing the ball for 297 a game. They're rushing for 239 a game, so a pretty balanced offense. Their quarterback, Grayson Mitchell, is completing 83% of his passes. I'll say that again. Coastal Carolina quarterback Grayson Mitchell is completing 83% of his passes. He's got 3 TDs and no picks on the season. Their defense is only allowing 126 passing yards a game, 199 rushing yards a game. They've got 6 sacks. Coastal Carolina leads the nation with 73% conversion rate on third down. Buffalo, meanwhile, they rush for 224 a game, so they might try to run the ball, control the clock, keep it out of Grayson Mitchell's hands. I don't necessarily see that happening, though. I think Coastal Carolina is just going to pull away like they did against Kansas. They looked sharp in the second half of that game. I think Coastal Carolina gets the win on this one. Number 17, Ole Miss. Home versus Tulane. Look for their rapid-paced offense to just pull away from Tulane. Go with Ole Miss on this. Number 18, Wisconsin has a bye week before a big matchup at home against Notre Dame next week. Number 19, Arizona State is on the road at number 23 ranked BYU. BYU is coming off a titanic win in the Holy War against Utah. I called that one, by the way, in case you remember. The first time in 9 years that they had beaten Utah. Arizona State comes in with a strong running attack. They're running for 256 a game. Although, again, those stats are a bit misleading for Arizona State because they played an FCS team in week 1 and then they played UNLV in week 2. So it's not like they've been playing world-beating teams in the first couple of weeks here. They are holding their opponents to just 83 rush yards a game. Their defense has 7 sacks in 2 games, along with 3 picks. They're completing 52% of their third down conversions. Quarterback Jaden Daniels is completing 73% of his passes. BYU, meanwhile, they have 178 yards a game passing, 193 rushing, so they're a bit more balanced than Arizona State is. They're allowing, though, 246 a game passing and 137 a game rushing. So we'll see how BYU's defense can react to the rushing attack that Arizona State is going to bring to the table. Their defense also has 6 sacks and 2 interceptions. They've played better opponents than has Arizona State. BYU played Arizona in week 1, and they played 21st ranked Utah and beat them at home in week 2. They're completing 50% of their third downs while holding their opponents to just 27% third down conversions. Arizona State, I'm not sure, is as good as their stats indicate because of the quality of the opponents. However, even though this game is on the road, I think this is a letdown game for BYU. All the emotion, all of the energy in that stadium last week, they mentioned on the broadcast that the game was sold out for the first time in many, many games. I don't think they can bring that energy to the field for 2 consecutive weeks against ranked opponents. I think Arizona State's good enough that they beat BYU. So go with the Arizona State Sun Devils in that game. Number 20, the Arkansas Razorbacks, after a big win, an absolute beatdown of the Texas Longhorns at home. They're home again against Georgia Southern. Go with the Hogs on this one. Number 21, UNC is taking on they're taking on Virginia. I'm just trying to find my research here. North Carolina has some impressive stats despite the fact that they're 1-1 and they didn't look good in their opening loss against Virginia Tech. They've racked up 307 pass yards a game, 174 rush yards a game. Sam Howell's completing 62% of his passes. He's got 4 TDs, but also 3 picks. I think all of them were against Virginia Tech. Their defense is only allowing 130 pass yards a game, 150 rush yards a game. They've got 2 sacks and 2 picks. Although, again, they lost to Virginia Tech, but it's not like Virginia Tech was really racking up the yards against them. And then they played an inferior opponent last week. So Virginia, meanwhile, get this. I haven't seen Virginia play this year, but they're 2-0. They're racking up 381 yards a game passing, but only 170 rushing, so it's clearly a passing attack that Virginia is using. Their quarterback, Brendan Armstrong, is completing 72% of his passes with 7 touchdowns in 2 games versus only 1 pick. Their defense is only letting up 155 pass yards a game, so it's going to be the passing offense of North Carolina versus the passing defense of Virginia. They're letting up 105 yards a game rushing. They've got 4 sacks and a pick. They're completing 44% of their third downs and only letting their opponents convert 29% of their third downs. I haven't seen Virginia play. I've seen North Carolina play, and I just don't trust North Carolina. I don't think that Virginia Tech is all that good. I know I picked them to win against West Virginia, but I don't think Virginia Tech is like looking to go win the ACC this year. I just don't think that they're that good. I think they're good enough to beat some teams, but I think good teams will beat them. I think North Carolina will beat up on opponents they should beat up on, but I think when they play moderately good to good teams, I don't think their offense has enough to do anything. I'm going to call the upset on this one. I'm going to pick Virginia on the road against North Carolina. Number 22, Auburn, I've already picked, is going to lose to number 10 ranked Penn State. Number 23, BYU, is going to lose against Arizona. Number 24, Miami of Florida, is home versus my Michigan State Spartans. Miami escaped at home against Appalachian State last week. They kicked a field goal with a couple of minutes left to play, and they held on to win. There's something that's wrong with De'Aaron King. He just does not look like the De'Aaron King from the Houston years post-surgery. It seems like, and they commented on this during the broadcast of the Appy State game, he just looks like he doesn't have that sixth gear that he can put it into where he can just speed by a linebacker or speed past a safety. There were a couple of times that he scrambled around in the pocket where he looked like the old De'Ara King, but a few times where he scrambled around and linebackers were able to get him. And not just like barely on shoestring tackles, they solidly grabbed him around the thighs. Miami does not look like a strong team. I kind of disregard the first game that they played because they're playing Alabama and they got destroyed. But then they really didn't look good against Appalachian State. Their special teams let up a kick return touchdown. They had a field goal blocked. Their offense wasn't really moving the ball that effectively. There's a drive or two where they looked good, but then there were other times where they just stumbled. They look discombobulated and disheveled. You could make an argument that it's a hangover from the beatdown against Alabama. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that it's just the lingering effects of that loss. I'm not sure if Miami is the team that some people hoped or thought they would be. Michigan State, meanwhile, has looked good in their first couple of matchups. Their running game looks strong. Their defense looks strong. I'm going to go with the upset on this one. I think Michigan State goes on the road to Miami. I think they get the win, and I think they boost themselves into the top 25 next week. And then finally, we're wrapping up with another Michigan team, the University of Michigan, coming in at number 25 with their big win against Washington last week. They're home against Northern Illinois. I don't think Northern Illinois has anything for them. Michigan's going to be in trouble, though, because their best wide receiver, Ronnie Bell, is out for the season with an injury. Their running attack seems like it's going well. But again, it seems like we're not getting the variety on offense that we were hoping to see from them. It seems like it's a lot of the typical Jim Harbaugh fare. Run the ball, play defense. That'll work against an underperforming Washington team that worked against Western Michigan. It'll work against Northern Illinois. Don't know if it'll work against Wisconsin. Don't know if it'll work against Penn State. Don't know if it'll work against Ohio State. But for this week, go with the Wolverines. And that does it for my picks for week 3 of the college football season. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to like this video, share it with anyone you think would enjoy it. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications so that way you'll be alerted to when new videos get put up on my channel. Thanks so much again for tuning in, everyone, and I'll see you all again next time.